Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
A big warm welcome to everyone and a huge thank you for joining us for the Australian Book Lovers podcast, now in video for the first time. So our mission is to bring fabulous Australian and Indigenous literature that spans a whole range of genres to book lovers around the globe, as well as fantastic resources and information for passionate authors looking to write their next bestseller. And I'm Veronica Strachan, aka V.E. Patton, fantasy, memoir and picture book writer, and also science fiction author, which, thank you, you can see science fiction on my shirt, voracious reader of many genres and non-fiction. And I am your founder and host, coming to you today from Woiwurrung country in Wurundjeri territory. And I have a special guest, as you can see from the video, a special guest co-host with me. Welcome, Laurie Bell.
Thank you, Veronica, for having me on today. And it feels definitely, you can see that I'm not Darren. So, so I'm Laurie Bell. I'm a science fiction and fantasy author, prompt writer, blogger, flash fiction writer, reader, reviewer, all-round geeky nerd, and proud of it.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm very happy to have you here. Now, for our listeners, we want to say an absolutely huge thank you to Darren Cass & Co, who was the co-founder of Australian Book Lovers, and over the past year and a bit, coming up, quite a little while, has done so much to build the brand of Australian Book Lovers, to edit, to entertain, and all of his efforts are absolutely appreciated. So for our listeners, Darren has decided to do some of his own projects, put some of his writing first and some of his other things, because he was just getting so busy that it was finding that Australian Book Lovers was just, one more thing that was making it pretty hard for him. So we hope to have him back to interview him when he gets his next book out, which, good luck, Darren, working on Godless. But again, thank you so much for all of the efforts that you've put in for Australian Book Lovers. We would not be here without you. And saying that, if you're finding the sound is not quite so good or the editing's a little bit dodgy, that will be because, I'm now doing the editing, but let's see how we go.
And if everything's a little bit choppy word-wise, I haven't done this before. I'm doing this for the first time, so we're just going to have a play, hopefully.
We are going to have a play, and really that's what it was all about, supporting Australian authors, and here we are, a couple of Australian authors just yabbering on and doing, nerdy word stuff, which is good.
Which is good, yeah.
So I was going to share with you a word from the lovely John Koenig, who writes a dictionary of obscure sorrows. This is one of my favourite things, of course, is words to made up. And Laurie, you mentioned that as science fiction and fantasy authors, we love made up words.
We make up words. All the time we're making up words, so I love this sort of stuff.
And sometimes we have to put a dictionary in the back of our books or the front of our books so people know what they're doing. So how about voila, which is WOLLAH? This is a noun for something you've misunderstood for years without knowing it. A familiar word with a weird pronunciation, a favourite saying that means the opposite of what you thought, a well-known factoid that was disproven years ago while you weren't looking, making you want to stress test the foundation of your understanding for reality.
I feel like that's a word that sums up everything that I am.
Absolutely, yes.
Something that's been disproven.
Yes, and this is, of course, a mispronunciation of the French word voila, meaning behold, and this is pronounced, voila. So there you go.
Wow.
Yeah, I really do love this book. And while it's obscure sorrows, I think it's the fact that English often doesn't have a word to express the subtleties of things. Like I think in Icelandic there's 16 words for snow and all of those kind of things. And I know, having looked a little bit more into some of the Indigenous languages, the subtlety, of course, of their understanding of country and those kind of things is just so much more expressive and emotive than some of our boring old English.
Speaking of, did I forget to mention I'm also on the same land that you are?
Yes.
So we're on Wurundjeri land as well. So
Beautiful.
We are just located a couple of hours apart, actually.
Yes.
Aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, indeed we are, and it's a beautiful part of the world. And sorry, Sydney, you are absolutely getting smashed with rain at the moment,
Yes.
but it's
I
okay
think
down here.
it's
Yeah.
coming this way this week though.
Ooh,
We're gonna get
okay.
smashed this week. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hope the roof doesn't leak. All right, one more. What about Winnie War, which is an unexpected burst of good news that only makes you skeptical? Believing that every sudden rise in your fortunes must inevitably be accompanied by an impending fall.
That's a really good word to have this week, actually, because of
Yeah.
course we had the 1st of April, and you cannot trust anything anyone says on the 1st of April. So that's a very fitting
Yes.
word.
Yes, yeah, it is indeed. And this leaves you feeling uneasy at the end of a really good day, waiting around for the punchline. Okay. And it's from the Middle English Winnie, meaning joy, and the very small writing, wotive, meaning woe, compared with willy wave, which is a sudden blast of wind descending from the mountains to the sea. Yeah.
Ah,
Oh, well, there you go. So 2 words.
Yeah.
So your
Love
challenge is to use Walla or Winnie War in a sentence today or this
Oh, I'll have to write those down actually.
week. And there you go. Then that will help you, to remember that. But why not make up words if we don't have one that expresses the right thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the cornerstone of good science fiction, alien planets.
Yes. Yeah.
And fantasy, where you're just making up everything.
You're making
it's
up
wonderful.
everything.
I love it.
Yeah. Now, talking about science fiction, I've been watching the 3-Body Problem, which is
I just
streaming.
finished.
Don't
Yeah.
tell me the last
No,
bit.
I won't. But of course, based on the book that was,
Yes.
yep, and
Yes.
wow, yeah, I'm still thinking about it days after finishing.
Have you read the books?
I haven't read the books. That's
No,
been on
neither have
my
I.
giant to read list
Yes.
that goes
Yes.
for miles, but it's definitely on the list, the 3-Body Problem.
Yeah. I was talking to my niece and she said friends of hers have watched and read and said the book is the best science fiction they've ever read. And I thought, well, that's a big call. I've read
Yes.
some good sci-fi, but I'm got that on the list as well to read. But I was home having to do some recuperating and thought, oh, what's on? And I thought, oh, sci-fi, excellent.
Yes.
And it's just horrible, compelling,
It is.
and
Yes,
Yes.
as all good sci-fi can be, it really highlights what's wrong with the world and where things are going, but gives you some ideas of coming out of it on the other side, which is fascinating. I love the concept of a 400-year wait.
Yeah.
Because what does that do to people?
I know, and there's so many people going, oh, well, we don't care, we'll be dead. Well, great, but, what about the people coming after?
Yeah.
And I love that it's really timely in terms of AI because, AI is at this kind of juncture, or machine learning, whatever we like to say. And I know we've talked to Danielle, who was on the board of the ASA, Danielle Clode, and she talked to us about where AI was and those kind of things. And it's challenging, it's fascinating. I think the cat's out of the bag, but
it's awful.
Yeah, but where do we go? Because human creativity, of course, is so critical.
Yeah.
But AI in medical terms can be incredibly helpful.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I actually saw a really great quote, and I cannot for the life of me remember who popped it up on social media this week, but someone had popped up on social media this week that you want AI for things like cleaning and not having to do the vacuuming, and to give you time to do the creative work that we all want to do and use our brains and just mentally recharge. That's what AI should be doing. It should be helping us with the vacuuming.
Yeah.
Which it is in a way, because I do have one of those little.
Oh, do you? Oh,
yeah, I do have a little.
My friend has one, and I was so jealous of it.
Yeah,
but she kept getting notices saying it was stuck somewhere.
It is hilarious. You end up talking to it like you would a pet, like a cat or a dog. It's like, what are you doing over there?
Let's look at some book spotlights.
Yes.
All right. That's my transition.
Are you going to keep some music to go?
I'll put some music in there somewhere. Yeah. Book spotlights. All right, so we have so many, and look, apologies to people, I was a little bit slow getting a few of these up on the website, and I've got a few more to go to catch up. So some absolutely brilliant books to share with you. We have, first of all, a lovely sci-fi from the fabulous Callan J Mulligan, who is a great supporter of Australian book lovers. The World Settlers. So this is, Callan has put his duology together. I'm pretty sure this is how it all comes. So here we go. After the cradle was lost, humankind expanded across the Orion arm of the Milky Way. Centuries of conflict followed, but peace returned under the rule of the Commonwealth. Now, the enormous world-settling starships of the past have been recommissioned, and the Astraeus has set sail to find new worlds at the centre of the galaxy. Not long into the journey, Elizabeth Denning witnesses a horrific murder and sees the wrong man framed. And to make matters worse, the ship begins to experience violent tremors. In a race against time, the passengers must find the killer and repair the ship before they fall victim to the cold, empty void of space. But things are not as they seem on this world settler. When secrets are uncovered, Elizabeth and her new friends find themselves at the centre of a conspiracy, and the galaxy will never be the same.
I love a good sci-fi.
Yeah, now I've read the first half, so now this is going to make me go, I'll have to go and read the other half now.
Of course, of
So
course.
thank you, Callan, for that.
So a little bit about Callan. So Callan J Mulligan was born in 1988 and grew up in Adelaide, South Australia, where our good friend Darren is from. Miss you, Darren.
Yep.
Writing poetry and fiction from a young age, his ambition and imagination took him through several creative careers, including marketing, music, and film and television. Oh, now I really want to talk to Callan. At the age of 29, he wrote his first published work of fiction, the novella A Mind of His Own. The debut work received critical acclaim and hit Amazon's top 25 psychological thriller list. He has since appeared in Australia's premier science fiction magazine and published his highly anticipated sci-fi thriller duology, The World Settlers. The World Settlers broke into global best-selling science fiction lists, along with side titles such as James S.A. Corey's The Expanse and Frank Hubert's Dune. A sequel followed in January 2023. Callan lives with his wife on the Gold Coast and spends his time reading, telling horrible dad jokes, and playing far too many video games. Again, Callan, we need to chat. And you can find him on www.callanjmulligan.com.
Brilliant. Very good.
Fantastic.
We have a mystery thriller now, Murder at the Narcissus Club by Kirsten Hunter. So a story as dark as the narcissistic souls who have gathered together unfolds in a single transformative night. Anna is on the brink of a revelation that echoes through the silver birch corridors of the infamous Narcissus Gardening Club. Tonight, she's ensnared in a dangerous game where alliances are as fragile as its members. The club comprises a peculiar combination of people. The members are affectionately nicknamed the Queen, the Princess, the General, Fetch, the Jester, and the Goddess. And the man Anna despises the most in the world, her husband. When a shocking death strikes the club, every member is under the spotlight. Questions are raised as psychologist Dr. Margot Gray, with her irrepressible spirit and piercing intuition, navigates a web spun with secrets and deceit. Wizardry of a brilliant kind is needed for Margot to stop the killer striking again. This dark yet playful psychological thriller is crime fiction at its best. This debut novel is also the first in the Margot Gray series. As an experienced psychologist, author Dr. Kirsten Hunter writes with an authoritative, there we go, one more syllable, voice. This book dives head on.
Hang on. That's Walla.
That's Walla.
Walla.
It's Walla, for sure. Oh dear. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that is absolutely appropriate. So this book dives head on into the brutality and tenderness of human nature. Prepare for a captivating journey where every page prepare for a captivating journey where every page turned brings you closer to the shocking revelations that lie at the heart of the Narcissus Gardening Club. And the quote is from Christine Buckley, "You haven't seen this book before. This is a truly fresh piece of work, a whodunit that's disturbingly relevant. Margot Gray has an intoxication with life, but she lives in the corners where the most people only imagine human nature can go." I love that. She lives in the corners where most people only imagine human nature can go. There you go.
Wow,
Yes.
that sounds fascinating.
It does. Murder at the Narcissus Club by Dr. Kirsten
Yeah.
Hunter. So tell us a little bit about
So
Kirsten.
a little bit about Kirsten. So Dr. Kirsten Hunter is a clinical psychologist with 20 years experience.
Ah.
Between running her private practice and loving her home life, she enjoys writing books, hiking, and scuba diving. Wow. And is known for embracing life. Her other books include the Signposts for Living series and the Squish series for children. Now that sounds interesting. Murder at the Narcissus Club is her debut crime fiction novel.
There you go. And she joins a very large, fabulous Australian women crime writers group, many of whom we've got here on the Australian Book Club, that really jumping into some great crime writers out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm loving seeing all those go up.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Now we've got an interesting book called Nameless by Amanda Creely, and this is a contemporary fantasy. The blurb is, "War takes our names from us and turns us into numbers. The number displaced, the number imprisoned, the number tortured, the number dead. The country has been swarmed by the invader and his army, the pack. The city is under siege. Many have fled while others have stayed to defend their country. Many more have died. Tala's family has been brutally murdered by the pack. Only she and daughter remain. They leave their city behind and seek refuge in a resistance cell. Here they gather with other survivors who are determined to overthrow the invader. But will they ever be strong enough to claim back their city, their country, their lives? A journey through love, grief, and ultimately hope. Amanda Creely's profound allegorical tale sheds light on shared human experiences of war and remembers the nameless victims. Shortlisted for the 2023 Dorothy Hewitt Award, Nameless explores love in all its forms and the importance of storytelling in its capacity to both teach and heal.
That sounds like a great book.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
And it's fascinating. So Amanda Creely is an Australian writer from Bendigo, Victoria.
Just up the road from me.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got some family over there. And holds a Bachelor of Arts in Writing and Literature, where parallel studies in mythology gave her that craft soul. Oh, I did a bit of mythology in uni too. That was great. She's that's love it. She has previously worked as a librarian and a nurse. Of Irish descent, stories have always played a large part in Amanda's life, where she began writing her own stories as a child and has never stopped. I totally relate to that. Shortlisted for the 2023 Dorothy Hewitt Award for Nameless, Amanda writes across many genres and is equally happy researching historical novels as creating quirky fantasy worlds or plotting fictional murders. Even.
I mean, how good is that? Historical novels, fantasy worlds, fictional murders.
It's actually, it's fascinating because we have an interview today with an amazing author who writes across genres as well. And I dabble in a few genres myself and across age groups. So it's wonderful seeing so many writers just exploring what they want to write rather than being drilled into a tiny little niche by, say, publishing or
exactly.
Or just the branding, I guess you could say. There's so many that are branching out, which is just fabulous.
Yeah, absolutely. And not being held by publishers or readers into a particular genre.
I think readers are more accepting of it now that there is a wide variety. Of course, you're going to write about different things. There's a wide variety of interests, and so many genres actually sort of coalesce and connect. And it's fantastic.
Yeah. Last book for us to spotlight. This is The Rewilding by Donna M Cameron, and it's a contemporary story, an exhilarating and unforgettable love song for our world. Heartbroken and in fear for his life, corporate whistleblower Jagger Eckerman escapes to hide out in a remote cave. But kick-ass radical Nia Moretti is furious a capitalist suit has taken over her cave. It is hatred at first sight. Yet Nia is hiding for reasons of her own, ones that drag Jagger closer to death as they are forced on the run together, and he is unwittingly pulled deeper into Nia's reckless mission to help save the planet. But who can save Jagger from the relentless pursuit of the man who wants him dead? Both an electrifying cat and mouse chase and an odd couple love story, the Rewilding captures the essence of what it means to be alive today in this cusp of change, pulsing with possibilities. It is a passionate intimation of hope.
Ooh, I like a good odd couple
Yes.
story.
Yeah.
That's always fascinating to get the conflict that comes through there. So Donna M Cameron is a playwright and an Augie-nominated radio dramatist who now writes novels. Oh my gosh, these are so many people I want to talk to. Her debut, Beneath the Mother Tree, released 2018 by Midnight Sun, was listed as a top Australian fiction read in the Advertiser's yearly roundup and was selected for the 2019 QWC Screen Queensland's adaptable program.
That's great.
The manuscript of The Rewilding won her a KSP fellowship, was runner-up in a Writing New South Wales Award, and gained her the 2021 Verona Fellowship. Donna was recently accorded a Regional Arts Development Fund grant to work on her third novel, Bloomfield.
Very good.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Donna, and thank you so much for sharing with us Rewilding. Now, not only has she shared it and is it listed on the website, but we've got 2 copies to give away.
Yay.
And it's just got the most beautiful cover, and I'm not going to try and put it up because I've got the little blurry background. I will cut it in to the editing afterwards. We have got 2 copies of Rewilding.
Oh, wow.
Thank you very much to Donna and Text Publishing. We've also got 1 copy of Vicky Wakefield's To the River, which is a completely gripping story with 2 brave, tough and damaged women at its heart, and we'll talk about that one next time. And we've got a copy of, and even though I'm not showing you, I'm getting them in my hot little hand. This is a lovely one, The White Cockatoo Flowers Story by Yang Yu, which is just absolutely lovely. It's a hardcover, and who doesn't love a hardcover with a satin ribbon in as bookmark? I'm sorry,
absolutely, that's fantastic.
That is gorgeous. And we've got a white cockatoo who's bitten into some pomegranate, so it's a beautiful cover. And I'll intersperse those, edit those in so people can have a look. If you want to get a free copy, you need to be one of our newsletter subscribers, which is absolutely free, but we only give away those books to our newsletter subscribers. And you can jump on the website and go to the book lovers page, so australianbooklovers.com. Go to the book lovers page, sign yourself up there, and you might be in the running for the free books. And I'll be doing that over the next few days. So quickly jump in so that you can get in now. Exactly, exactly, which is really good. Now, that's our book spotlights, but of course, did I do that in the order that I suggested that we were going to do?
Yes, yes, yes.
No. I was going to do the news and the other bits and pieces
yes.
first.
Oh, good. So it's, listeners, you need to be prepared for a little bit of back and forth. We're still working out the kinks.
Spontaneity is absolutely how it goes. So let me just tell you about, and this is courtesy of Literary Listings, who are fabulous. Let me tell you about some April events that you might like to go to. So we're just at the beginning of April. So get the pen ready.
Ready to go.
Let's start with next week. So Anne Mann is in conversation about her book Crimes with the Cross. She's at the Cinema Nova. Readings books are doing some writers, what do you call it? Writers, when they present. What's the word, Laurie? I've lost it. Launching?
Yes, book
launch.
Book launch.
I've lost my
that
word.
thing when they go out and talk about stuff.
Yes, that is absolutely it. RMIT, on the 10th, RMIT Non-Fiction are having a lab where Tony Birch talks about black writing and reads from women and children, and that's at the Collide Theatre in Swanson Street. Yarra Libraries have got an author talk with Melanie Jewston in conversation with Fairfield Books, Like Fire-Hearted Sons. And Dr. Monique Ryan, who I think she's a politician, isn't she? Yes. She's in conversation with Professor David Lindemeyer AO about the Forest Wars, Alan and Unwin, at the Eltham Bookshop. So there you go. There's just a few that are happening. Now, I want to talk to you about festivals, though, because so that's a few. You can look on literarylistings.com. They are brilliant. They've got everybody listed. And if you're an author and you're having a reading or a presentation or whatever the word is, please let them know, and they'll get them up on the list for you, and follow them on all the social medias. So in April, we've just missed Oracles of the Bush. Sadly, that's on this weekend, so I don't think we're going to make it up to Tenterfield in New South Wales, but
No.
same with poetry and literature, music. I had a distant cousin. We used to meet up in Bendigo, my mother's family, and he could recite The Man from Snowy River from Go to Woe.
Wow.
Just
That's
without
awesome.
prompting. That was pretty awesome. Yeah, that was lovely. But anyway, so of course, the Man from Snowy River Bush Festival is at Corryong on the 11th to the 14th of March. SwanCon 48 is in Perth. So share our love for science fiction and fantasy. Oh, I wish I could go to Perth.
Yes.
But go, you good things. In print, TV, art, gaming, and other forms. So SwanCon 48, Perth, WA, 20 to 21 of April, which is good. Now, the 19th to the 5th of May is the Stratford Shakespeare Festival. So Stratford in Victoria has hosted the Shakespeare on the River Festival, centred around the work and lives, of course, of William Shakespeare. And in 2024, there will be more than 20 events across 2 weeks. So the community players are taking on the Merry Wives of Windsor, Revel at the Bard's Banquet, and then on Sunday, May 5th, join the Medieval Market Fair Day on the Village Green to close off another festival with a grand variety of traditional arts and crafts, food, beverages, fresh produce, together with live music workshops and displays, something for everyone.
Beautiful.
So that sounds
Fantastic.
really good.
Yeah, it sounds really good.
The last two are the Sorrento Writers Festival for anybody who is down the peninsula there. And after delivering a hugely successful inaugural festival, Corey Perkin and her team are back to deliver another cracking weekend of literary events. So join in there and you can see a bookish weekend. And the final one is Riders at the Woolshed at Wagga Wagga in New South Wales. 8 incredible riders and 1 internationally renowned portrait artist. So jump on and Google Riders at the Woolshed or go onto Literary Listings. Thank you so much again for telling us where everything is. And they are the festivals in April.
Wow. Lots coming up, lots to do.
Lots to do indeed coming up. Now, the only other event that I did want to mention is the fabulous Danielle Corrie. Let me just get my spot here. Danielle, who, of course, wrote Tida's Story, T-E-I-D-A story. It's a story about a dog, which is just fabulous. And we've chatted to Danielle before. And Danielle has an afternoon with local author to discuss her book, Tida's Story. That's on the 27th of April at 1:30. So, yeah, just about 3 weeks away. So you can book at the Lionel Bowen Library, which is in Anzac Parade at Maroubra. So if you are up there, go and have a listen to Danielle because she is just inspiring. She's just fantastic.
And Art Library is just marvellous.
Ah,
They're just the best places ever.
Yes.
They put on so many great activities and talks, and they love books as much as we do.
They do. I will admit that I went down, I had a little outing and went down to pick up a book I had reserved at the library. It was full of
Fantastic.
children because it was, and they were
Children's
about to do a reading. They were doing reading because it was school holidays and they had activities and there was stuff
Fantastic.
everywhere. But the library was very calm.
Yep.
We're very happy.
Yep. Although they never seem to be when I do a talk there.
Ah.
It tends to be a little bit of madness because we do some writing workshops as well, and it just
very
gets
good.
wild and crazy. But no,
Ah.
that's marvelous. I
Oh.
love libraries.
Good.
Best
Now,
places on earth.
I do want to ask you, Laurie, a little bit more tell us about your work. Tell us about your writing. Tell us about what you're doing.
Well, as you know, you've had me on a couple of times, so I definitely like to waffle on about science fiction and fantasy, which is where I center most of my writing. I bounce between everything. Gosh, what can I tell you? So my first book was published in 2018 called The Butterfly Stone, which was done through the wonderful Wyverns Peak Publishing based out of the US. And since then we've had The Tiger's Eye and The Crow's Heart come out as well, which are a little bit tricky to see in the light that I've got today. I'll have to work out some better lighting in future. And I've actually just finished writing the 5th and final book of that series.
Fantastic.
I'm currently editing that book, which is very exciting. White Fire, which you can see there behind
I love
me.
White Fire.
That was the first book I actually ever wrote, which I wrote back when I was in high school, actually. That is my little dream book. That's my light sci-fi. Blood Fever, also behind me, is a dark sci-fi. So I have the light and the dark, depending on your mood, depending on my mood, which is a murder mystery sci-fi noir kind of whodunit in a way, but also a thriller to get to race to the end to save everyone.
With a really eclectic team. I love the team in there. Yes.
I had so much fun writing those guys.
Yeah.
They are just my trio, my fun trio. They are just awesome. And Boss from Hell was a little bit different.
Yes, and hilarious. I loved it. And so much Melbourne. It was like, I was just kicking myself. It was great.
It is set in Melbourne, and it is set around an administration assistant or an EA who discovers everything in her new job is not quite what she expects it to be. And it's actually a genre mash. So there's a bit of comedy, there's a bit of horror, it's contemporary, but there's a fantasy, there's some supernatural stuff going on. It's a bit of everything. Although it is a bit of a slow burn supernatural, so it takes a little while to really kick into the weirdness, but once it does, it just rockets.
And the grandmothers.
Yes, those grandmothers are my favorite characters ever, and they are based on several as I refer to as the oldies, the good oldies, some wonderful ladies that I met working at volunteering at my local theatre company, as well as my own grandmothers, as well as just a wide variety of fun and crazy shenanigans get on with those
shenanigans
two.
Is perfect. Yes. Yeah. It's good. And so what are you working on now, Laurie? What are you?
So I'm editing book 5 of my series.
Yep.
I'm editing book 2 of my White Fire series. So that is in progress as well. And I do have a little sci-fi young adult, middle grade kind of it sits right on the border that I am shipping around at the moment to see if I can get any bites from an agent, which I'd love to get. Hello, anyone out there?
Hello, anyone out there listening?
That's right. So that's been on the go for a little while now, that I've had, that I'm very excited about. There's even a hint of dragons in there too.
Ooh.
Oh, it's such a good story.
Always got to love that. Look at my, can we see a little kookaburra? No, that side. I can't do the point. Anyway, you'll see that there's a kookaburra with dragon wings sitting on my shoulder.
Yes, absolutely. So so lots on the go, always a lot on the go. I never know where I am at any one point. I don't know where I find time for any of it.
And then I said, "Would you like to co-host?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm in."
Yeah. I'm like, sure, bring it on. Let's do it. So yes, and I also do a bit of narration for Antipodium SF, which is a Australian e-zine electronic magazine that is online, that I've been writing short flash fiction for a couple of years now, and I'm on their narration teams. So they have a lovely radio program and podcast. Shout out to them. And quite often you'll hear me pop up reading someone's story. It might be my own, it might be someone else's story. So that's a lot of fun as well.
that is quite a lot. And of course, work full time and
Yes.
have a life and
Yes.
all
Yes.
those kind of things.
Everything else is kind of jammed in there as well. But what about yourself? Where are you at with your latest?
Very, very kind of
need
you
to
to
know.
ask. You need to know. I know. I feel really terrible. I just hang my head in shame.
No.
So I have finished another editing run of Soul Stuff, which is the second of the Opal Dreaming Chronicles, which is lovely. And thanks to the fabulous Tash O'Connor, who was very kind enough to be my alpha reader and, ploughed through a ridiculous amount of words and gave me some just absolutely brilliant feedback. So thanks, Natasha, that was good. And I've now got to run it through Pro Writing Aid. So this is one of the things that I know we want to talk about in the future is what do we use for editing and those kind of things, because I am a pantser rather than a plotter. And
Same.
it just pours out and you just smash it through. And then I realise that I've written back about 16,000 times in every chapter. I write one a lot. All my things are very visual, so I have to go back and put in other senses, and I have to go take away back and just write turn or away or something completely different. So there's all of those things we've got to really clean up the story. So I've done most of that.
We all have favourite words. I totally understand.
Yes.
And then you read it back and you're like, how many times is this even in one page?
Yes, I know. That's right. So things like Pro Writing Aid are really helpful. It is a machine learning, I guess, program, but you can ask it to just tell you how many times this, and then you go back and you change all of the things. What I really like is that it interfaces with a Scrivener, which is what I used to do on my drafting.
Wonderful. And of course, it's not writing the words for you.
It is not writing the words for me. No, it's just saying, did you really want to use that word there? Do you realise you've said that 13 times? So no, yeah.
Have I?
Have I really? Yeah. So it does help you with all your weaselly words and your repetitive words and those kind of things. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So it cleans it up so that it's a little more readable, which is good.
And that is the value of your alpha readers and your beta readers and your editing friends that if they're into books as well, they'll pick up those sorts of things as well.
Yes.
And it's so useful having another set of eyes on drafts, isn't it?
Yeah, and to be able to read it all in one go, whereas you might have taken months to put it together, and things like, I didn't think that Ali would do that necessarily. It doesn't sound like her. You go, actually, no, it's probably right. I was probably having a brain fart at the time, and I don't know what I was thinking. But yeah, you're right. Or this person doesn't seem to be getting anywhere. They're kind of the same at the end of the story as they were at the beginning. So there's that. So that's done. I have finished the first draft of a book called Animoid, which is about Yanni Cabot. It's based some hundreds of years into the future where the world has had a catastrophic geographical event and the only survivors have been a handful of humans and the hybrid human Australian animals that they send into space.
Oh, I'm hooked.
Yes.
I want more.
So Yanni is an echidnoid who is so she's human echidna. And she's just a feisty old 60-year-old. Gee, I wonder where that came from.
Love it.
A matriarch, and finds out that the corporations have, in fact, stolen one of her eggs when she was young and in the laboratory. So the whole off an adventure, go to find the resistance. It's good fun, and we've got dingoids and womboids and all of those kind of things, and a few of the the sort of famous Australian animals, I guess, that people see. And look, you can see them all on the things behind me. But
well, I wouldn't mind being a hybrid with a kangaroo because I could do with that pocket.
I know, right? How handy.
Somewhere to put all the books.
Yes. Or when you're an echidna, you can bring your pouch up when you want it. It just
even better
when you need
or,
it.
as a part wombat, please tell me there's some square poos in there because there needs to be. That is the best part of a wombat.
You definitely know they've been there. I haven't gone to that level, but hey, I have to see what I can do with that. With it,
Yeah, you've got
to
to get
Laurie
that in
Bell,
somewhere.
square poop. Yeah. So there you go. But it has been fun looking at all of the amazing things that Marsupial's doing. And actually, I was listening to, I think, Love in Country by Bruce Pascoe and Vicky, and I can't pronounce her last name, but on the audiobook. And they're talking about the phascogale and some of the little tiny marsupials that we don't see very much because of, unfortunately, the sheep and all of that have trumped their land. But there's just amazing, absolutely amazing creatures that are like 4 millimeters long and 17 grams, and their mothers can hold it in their hand and hop along, and I think, oh wow, how can they survive those little treasures? But anyway, they do. So yes, and of course, if anybody, I hope my daughter Cassie is not listening because she does not like arachnoids, but
no.
Yes, web space, literally web space, spiders jumping in harness, making portals.
No, you can't put spiders in. No. I'm going to be paranoid. I'll be looking around everywhere, waiting for the web. No, that's not a web you want to walk into.
Yeah, no, it's not. But
not a humanoid-sized one.
And bigger, yeah. So
I have chills. I have chills down the back.
So that is what I'm working on at the moment.
Wow, that is absolutely fantastic.
It was a bit of fun to write. It's been in my mind for a little while, this kind of, because echidnas are my favourite animals. I'm looking it up here because I've got a beautiful local artist has got a fantastic echidna with just a little thread of grass there. And hubby's just taken some Swiss friends around Tasmania, and they had so as we're jumping into Catherine Jinks's interview,
we should mention
that you'll lose our beautiful faces and you won't see Catherine because we recorded the interview pre our decision to do video. So there'll be slides going through while Catherine is chatting, so you can make yourself a cup of tea, but keep listening.
Yep, and have a look at the amazing book covers, because I'm sure there'll be quite a few book covers that come through, and we will definitely be back straight after, so stay with us.
Yes, indeed. Good morning, book lovers. It is a beautiful morning here. I'm going to say that even though you might be listening to this very late, and I'm absolutely delighted to have with me today Australian author, prolific Australian author, Catherine Jinks. Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning. Hi.
Now, Catherine, I am here on Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country down in the Macedon Ranges. Where are you coming from today?
I'm in the Blue Mountains, which is Gundungra or Darug, because it's a sort of an area that was split between the two peoples, and they met up here a lot, apparently.
Yeah, it's similar to where I am. We around Mount Macedon was and Hanging Rock, which was a fairly significant place for traditional owners, and so we're in the kind of a corner, Tangarang and Jajawarang and Woiwurrung. So yeah, a little bit the same. The mountains often have that kind of significance, don't they?
Yeah, I think it's a passing through place and a meeting place.
Yeah. However, we are here to talk to you today about books, and I think you got a bit of history there. I counted 53 books on your website.
Yeah. Yeah, some of them are picture books, Yes.
Yeah. No, I'll let you get away with that, but they definitely still count as books. You have then been writing for a long time. Can you remember the very first book you wrote? Because, you've sent us along some answers, which is lovely, and that was when you were in single digits. So can you remember what that first book was about?
Well, my little book, I Want to Be a Jungle Girl, that one was that?
Yeah, beautiful.
It was a little one. I think I must have been like about 8, I think.
Yeah.
And it was a little picture book, on a little pieces of paper. So
stapled together carefully.
Actually, it was one of those little pads that had a little sticky thing on the side. So, yeah.
Very good. Now, it wasn't in relation to, who was it? Bomber the Jungle Boy, I think, was around in those days, wasn't
he? Never heard of that. So okay. I just, for some reason, I must have been really sick of brushing my hair.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
Having to make my bed and tie my shoelaces and things like that.
Yeah.
So
there you go. All right. Now, writing since the age of 8 and with 53 books under your belt, when did you legitimately think this yeah, I'm a writer, I can say I am a writer. Did you go straight into writing from school? Did you do other jobs before you decided that you could earn a living this way?
My first and pretty much only normal job was as a corporate journalist.
Right.
Well, actually, I started in the training area at Westpac, and then I moved into the kind of corporate journalism stuff. And so I was earning my living as a writer pretty much after that, like but it was a particular kind of writer.
Yeah.
In terms of writing fiction, I sort of didn't regard myself as a fiction writer until I published my first book, which was when I was 26, I think. 26, yeah. So that was a long time ago.
I'm going to apologise because I've got to give people your bio. So sit there quietly for a minute and just have a little drink of your cup of tea. Catherine Jinks was born in Brisbane, Australia in 1963. She grew up in Papua New Guinea and later studied medieval history at the University of Sydney. After working for several years in a bank, we've just heard about, she married Peter Dockrell, a Canadian journalist, and lived for a short time in Nova Scotia, Canada. She's now a full-time writer residing in the Blue Mountains of New South Wales with Peter and their daughter Hannah. Catherine is...
Yeah, except Hannah, that's it. Sorry, I've got to...
Yeah, you've got to update it.
I've got to change that. That Hannah's moved out.
Well, I think sometimes that's a good thing, isn't it, when our children finally move out?
Absolutely.
Has she done the out and in business that a lot of them do these days?
No, she's been out and out.
Yep.
Basically, because she's in the Blue Mountains, we're not in Sydney.
Right, yes.
We're about an hour and a half drive. And so basically, when the kids from the mountains move out, they move out. Yeah. They tend to move out to Sydney, and they can't, it's a bit tricky. Like, it's a real drag having to get into the city, especially the middle of the city every day up here. People do it. I mean, people go for 2.5 hours to get to their jobs from here, but, you wouldn't want to. Yeah. So pretty much when the kids move out, they move out, unlike in Sydney.
And there's plenty for them to do in Sydney. Let's be honest. The big smoke. Now, Catherine is a 4-time winner of the Children's Book Council of Australia Book of the Year Award and has also won a Victorian Premier's Literature Award, the Adelaide Festival Award for Literature, the Ina Noel Award for Children's Literature, and an Aurealis Award for Science Fiction. So in 2001, she was presented with a centenary medal for her contribution to Australian children's literature. There you go. It's a pretty good body of work, Catherine.
Yeah, I tend to skip around because I get bored.
Well, that was one of my questions. I mean, we're looking at, if we look, we've got adult, we've got young adult, we've got picture books, we've got thrillers, we've got sci-fi. How come so many different?
Historical. I won a couple of Davitt Awards too for crime fiction.
The crime fiction. Time to update their website.
I know, right? Yeah, you're right. I should do that.
Tell me a little bit about, sci-fi, historical, all of those kind of things, thriller. What is, now this is a bit like asking you, what's your favourite child alive with just Hannah? That's not so bad. What's your favourite to write?
I would say, look, it's probably children's because I just seem to get more fun out of I get more fun out of children's in the end.
Yeah.
However, I can't seem to stick at it for too long.
Right.
Because sometimes I need to get into something a bit more meaty, or I simply get an idea that's not going to fit into a children's scenario. Yeah. Like, my worst thing in the world is to waste a good idea.
Oh.
Like, if I think of a good idea and I'm like, oh my God, that would make a good whatever.
Uh-huh.
Then, to be honest, once many years ago, I thought, oh, that's a good idea for a horror story. And then I thought, oh, well, I don't really do horror. And then I said, oh, no, I want to do horror.
Yeah.
I don't want to waste that. So I just sort of read a lot of Stephen King and I did a horror, but it's like, yeah. So if I get a good idea that's not going to fit into children's, I'll go somewhere else. Yeah. So
where do those ideas come from? Is it obviously, I suspect, from and particularly thriller and crime writers, I know, are great observers of human nature and people in general. Are you a sort of a watcher of people? Is that where your ideas come from? Or, I mean, you're in the beautiful Blue Mountains. Where do they pop up from? Or is it random muses that drop into your head?
It comes from everywhere, doesn't it? I mean, you know, the Evil Genius, which was probably my most successful series, the Evil Genius series, that just came from a toy that my nephew had.
Right.
And it was so disgusting, like Professor Gangrene.
Right.
And my husband says, what on earth? And then my brother said, oh, well, that's Professor Gangrene. And then my husband said, you know, I would really like to know where these people get their degrees from, you know, what university lets them in. Yeah. And my brother said, oh, probably got from the University of Evil. And I thought, oh, University of Evil, like that. So I went away, you know. So, and then like my most recent book, it was just stuff that I picked up from news stories about the sort of sovereign citizen movement. It's just, you know, sort of anything that pops up, you know, you just never know what might get you going.
Yeah. Let's talk about Traced, which is your latest book and is out now, came out in early July. So I'm going to read the blurb for Traced. Traced introduces Jane, a contact tracer whose job is to track a virus through the community. While on a call with a close contact, she discovers that the woman on the phone is scared of the same man that has been chasing Jane and her daughter for years. Grounded in the horrifying realities of domestic abuse, Traced is a story centred on control, dominance, family and fear. Right. And the little subtitle on the fabulous cover says, Run, Hide. I can
Run, Hide, Traced. I think it's not quite right.
No,
like,
Run, Hide, and then Traced. It's like, whoa, okay. Tell me first about, I guess, your experience of the COVID pandemic. You know, how did you survive? Were there many lockdowns up in the Blue Mountains? Because, you know, people down in Victoria will be very, very familiar with the long lockdowns that we had here. What were you?
I don't think we can appreciate what it was like for people in Victoria. I mean, we still had a couple of lockdowns, but it wasn't like you. We had two. They were, in fact, my last book, The Attack, not my last book, I'm sorry, my last adult book, my last children's book, my last adult book, The Attack, dropped exactly during the second lockdown. So it was, had a hard time.
Yes.
Which was just really dismal. So that was bad. But generally speaking, because I'm up in the mountains and it's easy to find a place to walk around where nobody's around, it was not too hard for us, really. Yeah,
your 5K radius would have been fairly pleasant.
I work at home anyway. Yep. In fact, I've been training for this for decades. And we hadn't been getting out much for various reasons anyway for a couple of years beforehand. So it wasn't the big impact that it would have been for other people, though, you know, it was hard not being able to see my daughter who was down in Sydney. And actually, to be honest, touch wood, I haven't had COVID yet.
Oh, unicorn, just like me.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I don't know if it's because we sit at our desk
and don't see anybody. That's exactly right.
Don't see anybody. I don't know. I mean, it's not like I've not seen anybody. No. I've been to things. And I wear a mask and all that. But anyway.
Yes. So. There it is. The thread, though, of course, is a thriller thread, and a number of your books. And really, I do love the little bylines. Like The Attack is, you know, when the past comes to get you, and The Shelter is have you locked the door, which is like, you know, every horror movie is, you know, why didn't you lock the door? Yes.
Actually, my editor, Mandy Brett, came up with all of those.
Well,
she's very good at it.
You please tell Mandy that she's done a great job, because it's it just does get you in and gives you that little bit more than sometimes the covers. in terms of writing a thriller and writing something like Trace, which is dealing with other, sensitive material around control and dominance and family, tell me about the research behind putting all those details together.
Yeah, research is part of the whole novel, writing a novel scenario. But basically, and look, say for historical, if I write a historical novel, it's just very heavy on the research, like sci-fi, even if you're making up a world, you still have to do your research that it means that it's a believable world. Now, probably the least amount of research you have to do is for a contemporary novel set in the place where you live. But even so, you have to do a reasonable amount of research, for example, and it's not like historical novel research tends to be more the traditional academic type research, whereas this kind of research is more journalistic research. So you go out and you talk to people like, for example, contact tracers. I talked to a couple of them, and I talked to a travel agent because she's working as a travel agent sort of at one point, and I talked to happily a friend of mine who was doing a sort of accommodation booking. That's another of her jobs, so I had to go and find somebody who did that. You just have to find people and chat and get a good lot of background. I did a bit of research into domestic violence support and also procedures regarding lockdowns and domestic violence and so forth, or not lockdowns, but isolation and that sort of thing. So yeah, there was a bit of research in that regard, and it's mostly to do with looking up websites or talking to people.
Enough to get the lingo right, of course, and to, each industry has its own particular paradigm of language and culture and process, doesn't it? And if you don't get that right, it trips people up. That's what distinguishes good research and bad research.
Like, you have to make it sound as though you know what you're talking about. And happily, one of my friends who put me onto the contact tracers, who used to work in the health department, she read it and she gave her thumbs up in terms of sounding fairly, sort of believable.
Yes, because there is also literary license. You've got to make the story. Never let the truth get in the way of a good story, as they say. So there is that. Tell me a little bit about, over the time that you've been writing, you would have seen, in 35 years of writing, obviously a lot of changes in the publishing industry. For you, what do you think have been some of the most significant changes?
I tell you what has been email. Actually, yes. Because what happened was because of my very long history, I wrote my first book on a typewriter. Used the advance to buy a computer. My first computer. Started writing on a computer. That was transformative. Okay, so that was number one. Word processing. That's number one. Number two, when I started off, I was associating with local publishers. We spoke on the phone. We sent letters.
I know what those are.
Faxes. We faxed things. All of this sort of stuff. Then what happened was email took off, and I started publishing overseas because what happened was you could edit for them by attaching your manuscript to a, email. Like, it was that opened up the industry in such a major way for more and more people. So there was that. Then came Harry Potter, because when Harry Potter arrived, it showed the publishing industry, the international publishing industry, that you could make money out of children's books, like real, like proper money. So suddenly all the advances went up. It was great.
Good.
And that had a real knock-on reverberating effect for a long time. But then, and there were several follow-ups to that, like the Hunger Games, that was the YA one, Twilight, that was another YA one. So that it kept things rolling along for a while.
Yeah.
But I would say probably then the global financial crisis happened, and then things started to get much more wobbly. And that coincided, I think, with just people doing a lot more listening to podcasts, doing a lot more looking at stuff on their phones. And that's kind of hit the publishing industry quite hard. So I've sort of seen it rise and fall to some degree. So my agent always said, she quotes this quote for saying, the publishing industry is in a crisis and has been for the last 400 years.
I like that. That's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it gets hit. And look, let's face it, it's always been the phrase, what was it, the writer in the attic or something? That's, it's been around for a long time, the fact that writers are fairly impoverished and not very well treated. I mean, we never, until Dickens, we didn't even used to get royalties. So,
Yeah. And it is still, quite difficult in Australia, although...
it's a shocker right now.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah. We have the Australian Society of Authors working hard for advocating for, electronic royalties and those kind of things, which is great. Yeah. And I keep encouraging our writers who are listening to make sure you're on the, electronic lending rights, public lending rights, get your books registered with Trove, all those kind of things. So yes, all are out there. Let's look at your particular writing style. And not only have you said that you are a plotter, but way up there, you are a screenplay level plotter. So tell me about that. What does that mean?
I just mean that, oh my goodness, I just looked up and saw a spider crawling. Anyway,
do you need to do something about it? Is it a big
No, I don't. I'm not terrified, but I have to say, cheeky but anyway. I think it might be one of those whitetails too.
Oh,
anyway,
don't get close then.
Okay, screenplay level. What I mean by that is that screenwriters operate under a much, much, much more rigid, structural kind of, I suppose, straitjacket in a way when they're particularly, look, Hollywood style ones have that extremely sort of laid out 3-act structure that they follow and all that. Plus, you don't just whack something down. You either write your little scenes on pieces of cards and move them around, or you have to, and you have to look at the themes, and you just go, I was literally just in a writer's room for, well, maybe it will get made into a series, or maybe it won't, one of my books, but it's happened a lot and it never actually gets made. And everybody's sitting there taking things apart and putting them back together again, really planning before anybody puts pen to paper, as it were. I used to sort of play it by ear a bit until my third book, which I never finished because I got halfway through and realised I didn't know where I was going.
No.
And that was when I was very young. I was late 20s. So I suddenly realised, okay, this is not happening again.
Yep.
So I started to plan, and I just plan everything. And that way, especially for something like Evil Genius, which is very long, that way, if you run out of creative puff when you're writing something really long, and you've been spending so much time on the sort of the micro, moving words around, and not on the sort of the big picture, it doesn't matter because you've got it all there. It's like it just helps you. It helps you finish. I've never had writer's block since then, if I started planning properly, because you put enormous amounts of creative energy into the front end when you don't have to get completely obsessed with just the way the words are laid out. And you can do all of that. And it's not to say that things don't change a bit as you go, because you write yourself into characters, so they can change a little bit as you settle into their feet, so to speak. So I think it does change, but you just have the general narrative drive. Also, it improves your narrative drive. And, oh, my God, you don't have to do the sort of editing that some people have to do when they're sort of, have to rewrite large chunks because
they realise they've left a character or there's a huge plot hole. Yeah.
Well, sometimes it's not even that bad. It's when you go to the publisher and they say you have to rewrite enormous amounts of it, blah, 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 blah. So that's even worse. So, I mean, it's not like I haven't had to do that to some degree, but not as badly as somebody who hasn't planned it all out. Plus, you can say, no, look, see, it's doing this, 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 because this is what I planned.
Yes. So there's a reason for it. Yeah.
There's a reason for it. Yeah. So I just feel like it's it's a good way of not getting writer's block. B, it's just where you think you're going to you just think, oh my God, I'm never going to finish this. This is a nightmare. I'm really tired of it.
Yeah.
But it's right there. All you have to do is drag yourself along using your plan. And then eventually, as the end's in sight, you start to get your second wind again.
Yeah, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
See the light at the end of the tunnel, yeah.
Does it mean that you always write chronologically, or do you sometimes skip bits where you think, oh, I can't write that today, but I know this is coming up, and you jump into that?
I find I have to write chronologically simply because otherwise the whole continuity thing is quite profound. I mean, the skill is to keep the whole book in your head, and that's a skill that you only develop over years of kind of practice. But even with the whole book in your head, there are little details that you might have mentioned. Like if I jump around, that can sometimes happen to me with editing. I think, oh no, I didn't put this in here. Oh yeah, I did, but I'd forgotten that I did. You know what I mean? So I need to make sure that I go from go to woe, mentioning things along the way. Like I might forget to mention something and then I'll go back, but I just find even though I plan a lot, you still lay down a lot of texture and things as you go. And it's the little things, the little bits of texture that can sometimes get lost if you jump around, and you can forget where you mentioned something earlier. And also there's a certain build-up sometimes there's a build-up of the narrative drive. There's a build-up of tension that can be best done from go to woe. And also sometimes when your character changes, they go through their bit of an arc. Like the last one I did, she's quite young at the start, and then a few years go past, and she's firms up, she becomes more mature, and it's just better done in one sweep, I think, rather than jumping around.
Bring her along.
Yeah. But I mean, not to say that. See, other people might have a brain that's different from mine, and they can do that. But I find that it's just more helpful to me to go from beginning to the end.
Do you, thinking about in terms of software and the things that we've seen, come in over the years, are you a word plotter? Do you put it on an Excel spreadsheet? Is there a whiteboard happening somewhere? How do you plot your...
I'm not a very technological person, so I actually just write it almost like I would the book, except I just say chapter 1, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say this. I'm going to, there's bits of crucial, what do you call it, like dialogue that I might have heard in my head, so I put that down. So I break it just up as a document. It's like, it tends to be like maybe a 30-page, 40-page document. With all the stuff in it.
Yeah, so a bit of a Bible so you can keep going back to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. It's a story Bible.
Yeah. Okay. Which, I'm learning from my niece who is a producer and, naturally, runs and attends a lot of writers' room that, yes, the Bible is very important. You can't be having people's eye colour change or their background or all those kind of things. Yeah. Okay. Then the different mindset for you to switch from, say, a contemporary thriller to a children's book, and I absolutely love the cover of Freckles. That is just beautiful.
Isn't it? It's so precious.
And, because I don't have much colour left in my hair, but my mum was auburn haired with freckles. So, yes, it was very delightful. And I had one red-headed child out of all of that. Tell me, how do you switch brains from domestic abuse, thriller, traced, psychological stuff happening to the far more gentle, emotional connection in freckles?
The thing about picture books is that they are different from all my other books. They're probably, I would say, almost literally, because a couple of them have been rhyming, but it's probably the way people, I don't write poetry at all, like verse. I think you could dignify it by the name verse for picture books or whatever, and I'm not a very good at poetry. I don't understand it much. But with picture books, you get this idea. It's usually a fairly simple idea. You work it a little bit and then you sit down and you just go vroom. And that must be like with poetry. Like that must be, whereas, so it's not a planned thing very much. It's completely different from anything else I do. And it doesn't happen very often. And it's usually the kind of idea you get is a simple, bright idea. It's not like the more complex set of ideas that make up a novel idea. Like you get one idea for a novel, then you tuck it away, and then you get another one, you put that together with the other one, and then you maybe. So, but this is just one little, it usually has just one through line of an idea, and it's all done very quickly. I could be in a jolly picture book mood for one day, and then just for some reason, and then I'm back in the other one. And it would be a nice relief. To be honest, I've done now something like 5 adult thrillers in a row with maybe a picture book here and there, but for years and years I just did YA and children's, and I've been doing adult thrillers lately. I mean, it's partly a symptom of what you can sell, but also it's just, in a way, I'm thinking about doing a children's book now, because I have to say your mindset gets darker and darker.
Yes.
Especially because it's contemporary. Like I've done a lot of fairly dark stuff that's historical, but you can step out of that world quite easily. Whereas when it's contemporary and that dark, I mean, I quite like dark. I'm quite a dark person. I love horror, but just living in it for long periods of time can get a bit downy. So I'm definitely thinking of other, but unfortunately I have honed my thriller skills to the point where like people are sort of possibly wanting kids thrillers as well, which is fine.
Kids thrillers.
I
have to say, the Reformed Vampire Support Group and the Abused Werewolf Rescue Group, where did they come from?
Vampire Support, it was a long time ago. And would you believe it was pre-Twilight?
Oh, right.
So when I first went and like in America, and this agent was saying, nobody wants to make stuff about vampires. And then it hit Twilight hit. But I'm just trying to think, the Reformed Vampire Support Group, I think what had happened was, this is what happened. I saw this, I think it was 30 Days of Night, which was a movie. I'm pretty sure it was that movie. I'm not sure, but it was this movie about vampires, and they were really awful. Like, I mean, there are vampires, and these were monstrous vampires, like really bad. I do remember, I'm pretty sure I sat there and I was thinking, because, there are different vampires, and some vampires have been okay. And I was like, imagine being a vampire and sitting there watching that. Wouldn't you feel bad? I mean, and then I thought, that actually kind of a good idea, especially if you're exactly the opposite of those. Like superhuman, like super strong creatures who look like, you're just this poor vampire sitting at home because you can't go out because otherwise you get in trouble and all. I just had this vision. And look, to be honest, at the same time as this was happening, my daughter was first diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
Right.
And it's no accident that I did a sort of blood-based disability story, I think, around that time. She was 10 at the time.
That is a long time to live with that.
Yeah. And it, so it was a combination, I think, that the movie and what was happening with Hannah.
There you go. You have an incredible library. Tell us about the horror. How are you going to translate adult horror to kids? How much can they take? Where's that line?
No, I don't. No, not horror for kids. I mean, look, horror for kids is, Goosebumps.
Yeah, of course.
It's,
spooky.
There's plenty of it. Spooky, I'm talking about thriller, which is different.
Yes,
like that's a thriller is more just a suspense, cranking up the sort of, it's an adventure with a bit of a little drop of fear involved, but not too bad. You have to get the tone right. That's hard. It's not easy. You have to get the right idea for it. That's why I've been sort of working away.
Do you have young beta readers that will give you some advice on what the children's language is these days?
Well, it's funny actually, because I've just finished one she's supposed to be 23, and I had to get my daughter to go through it because, apart from anything else, it was a lot of stuff about social media. It's all about social media. I'm so good at that. So you need all of that. But, thank God for her, because I'm able to sort of keep a clutch on the sort of the hem of the whole thing. Yes. Being dragged along. But apart from social media, which is a kind of it's fairly ephemeral, but it's not. With things like slang or the way people talk, it changes so fast that you're best to try and avoid it as much as possible, because honestly, it's just going to change. Like, I put down, this is a hilarious example. Okay, so in this book I wrote, which has not been published yet because my daughter's been going through it, I put somebody texting, and I put in lowercase GR and then 8 as in great, right?
Yep.
I put that. She goes, Mum, so people don't do that anymore.
You've just dated yourself, Mum, right? Okay.
No. So I'm like, okay, but see, that's the problem.
Yes,
and that's not been that long, really.
No.
I've always, from the get-go, we're talking 30 years of it, tried to avoid too much ephemeral, edgy slang. It just isn't going to last. And you have to sort of rely on slang that's a little bit more generally used, a bit more kind of established, I suppose. Often you can make things seem loose by more the sort of rhythm of the words and the way people talk, the way they break up their sentences, all that kind of stuff, rather than trying to rely on things like slang and language, because it's just honestly, it varies from place to place so much. Like, I remember when we were trying to translate Evil Genius into American, it was a bunch of East Coast publishers, right? And so I had Terrace House, and they said, well, what's that? And I said, well, it's this. And they said, oh, well, that's a row house. Okay, row house, whatever, you know. And then it got over to California, and they go, what's a row house? Okay, righto, because they don't have them there, I guess.
Yes,
But so, if it's a matter of it's not just time, it's like geography. So, there's slang being used in some states in Australia that aren't being used in the others, would be used differently.
Yeah, we just got to know what people call, bathing costumes, your cozies or your togs.
Well, that's right.
Yeah, you cross the border and they go, you're doing your what? Your cozies.
Exactly.
Did you ever consider using a pen name for the different genres? Or is it never crossed your mind?
No, because none of my books were such staggering bestsellers. Well, I mean, look what happened even to J.K. Rowling.
Yes.
She changed her name and it didn't sell very well until, everybody found out who really wrote it. So basically, if you've got some kind of audience these days, you try and build on it in the publishing industry. You don't, to a degree, you're right, because the one thing that's probably worked against me somewhat, not so much anymore, I think, because but when I was particularly well known as a children's author, getting into adult was, it's all right going from adult to children's, but from children's to adults, everybody thinks you're kind of from the nursery trying to the big boys or something. I don't know. So less so perhaps with, if poor old thrillers have been labouring under this kind of crime thriller type stuff has always been regarded as kind of a bit, I don't know, the sort of lower class. And if you're doing YA and kids, which has a very strong narrative drive, and then you go over to crime thriller, which is a very natural progression because they both have the strong narrative drive. It's all about story and plot and pushing things forward. That's a more kind of natural progression of people, and because it's the lower class genre, nobody cares as much. I think, but I could have, I suppose, worried about it, but honestly, it's hard enough trying to get things in your own name, like organising a career in your own name, let alone another name as well. I'm not well organised enough, I don't think. No, I don't know how Jennifer Rowe does it. When things used to come in checks, and that kind of thing, like what would you have done? I don't know. Anyway.
Tell me then, do you write for yourself or for a particular audience?
Yeah, I've gone way beyond that kind of thing. Basically, I guess at the beginning, I was probably writing more for myself. However, right from the beginning, if you're just writing for yourself, it's never going to work. You have to think about somebody else reading it because they have to want to read it. So unless you've got a real everyman kind of brain so that every single thing you write down is going to be really, really happily welcomed by every single person out there who reads, you have to be conscious always of who's reading it. Not in terms of the character of the person reading it, but just the fact that they're going to get, this is a whole lot of dense stuff. If you're if you're writing for children, definitely you're keeping in mind the audience. I don't care if you're enjoying it, even if you're doing it and you get an idea, you think, oh, I love that. Oh, I'm going to start with that. That's for me. You know? But if I have a whacking great, dense, 1-page paragraph for a child, that's not going to work. You have to think about breaking it up and making them skip around and have more fun and all that sort of stuff. You've got to keep that in mind. You've got to keep in mind not to use long and difficult adjectives and, you don't simplify it too much. Never do that because I tend to write fairly simply for everybody anyway. But because you have to as a thriller because you can't get bogged down. In fact, the new tendency is to take out as many prepositions as possible. I mean, it's just, but so always both, to be honest. Yeah. But also when you end up writing for a living, you're also writing for the publisher, to be honest.
Yes. Well, yeah.
There's three. There's you, there's the audience, and there's the publisher.
A good deal of pragmatism there.
Yeah.
There are a lot of great reviews about your books, not only on your website, but certainly all over the internet, including Wikipedia. Lovely that you've got your own Wikipedia page. That makes,
I didn't do that. I don't know who did it. Probably some publisher.
Yeah, could do. But tell me, what's the best response that you've ever had to your writing?
Basically, the best responses are where they make me feel as if I'm actually a useful member of society because you tend to go around feeling a bit like a parasite. Well, look, let's face it, for a very long time in Australia when I was young, and because I was young in the 70s and 80s and that, and it was regarded when I had to write, say, applying, like when I was traveling, and you have to write down your occupation, and I write down writer, and I feel like I'm writing down wanker. Like, it was just a real issue. And one felt, even though a few years ago I worked it out that I brought in a lot of foreign currency, because I sold overseas. So in fact, I was helping with the balance of payments here.
Good on
I'm
you.
not
Yes.
complete parasite, but but I feel sort of desperately inferior to sort of doctors and nurses and teachers and, all the people who are actually doing things. So sometimes when people have this reaction where they've read something of mine and it's affected their lives in a really good way, it's been just so, I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm here for a reason. One particularly lovely one was where two Canadians who read Evil Genius, they were a boy and a girl, and I think they were in high school or university or something, and they started, I don't know where they met up, somewhere, and they started talking about Evil Genius. They were both big fans, and that triggered them seeing each other more, and they ended up getting married.
Ah, see, that's wonderful.
Evil Genius. And then another one, there was a couple of people, like there's been a couple of people who've written to me and said that they started to do like computer security and computer courses and things like that, and got into computing as a career because they read Evil Genius.
Ah, there you go.
And then another person who was actually, he must have been, neurodivergent, like he was, and he read about Cadell and in Evil Genius, and he just felt better about himself, and he was able to make friends better and everything through that. That was really great.
Yeah.
And then there was somebody many, many years ago who told me later that I went and visited and talked to a school once, and then she went away and read Pagan's Crusade, and she ended up becoming a diplomat in the sort of Middle East because of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
It is amazing when you get those stories and think words that I put on a page from an idea in my brain has made somebody reconsider what they're doing with their life. That's fantastic.
Well, I think it particularly is the case with, unless you're some kind of staggering genius, it's particularly the case with children's authors. What they read at that age can be so powerful. I mean, it was for me. I've never forgotten some of the books I read then. They were very powerfully impactful. But so it is particularly for children's authors. But I like it when with more recent ones for sort of adults, and there was The Attack, and it was all about being a teacher, and all these teachers I know was, oh my gosh, this was so great to read. Oh my gosh, I'm getting everybody because it's just like this, which was, she said a bit triggering. She said bit triggering.
Yes,
because it was a pretty hideous class she had, this teacher in The Attack, in the Attack.
Yeah.
So,
favourite book as a child then? What were some of the books that did influence you?
Different ages, I guess, were differently influential. I had the C.S. Lewis Narnia books,
Of course. Didn't we all?
profoundly effectful. Yeah. Then, I had a couple of Australian authors when I was kind of, so the Narnia books were very young, and particularly because I was in Papua New Guinea, we didn't have a lot. My mother used to read us Greek myths and legends a lot, and that did too have an effect. And then when I got back to Australia, and it was kind of later in my like year 6 and 7 and 8, and that was the time of Patricia Wrights and like The Nargin and the Stars and what's his name, Ivan Southall. And then I got into sort of a couple of adult ones that really got to me, like Mary Stewart's Crystal Cave, Merlin books, and I went through a Georgette Higher stage.
Oh yes,
very young. Like I think it's year 7 or 8, and like I started writing all my sort of creative writing exercises in that sort of heightened Jane Austen style, and it was like they were like, "What have you been reading?"
I remember my mum had a couple of those, or it was my nan, I can't remember, it's so long ago, but These Old Shades and The Devil's Cub, I remember those.
Oh, These Old Shades.
Yes.
I tended to do it more in the style of her Regency rather than 18th century, but
Very good. With all of the generous advice and information that you've shared, what would be your advice to somebody starting out writing now?
Well, in some ways, you've got it better, and in some ways, you've got it worse. We had a sort of restricted audience when I started off because we didn't have the internet. You've got the internet. There are different ways of getting into writing now. Like, in a way, you've got more variety of getting in somewhere. There are lots of more prizes. There are lots more self-publishing avenues. There are all kinds of things. But on the other hand, the publishers are desperately hard to get into now, compared with what they used to be. But in terms of actually writing, well, it's no different at all. You have to read. Like, it's just so simple. You have to just read and read and read and love it. There's that. Plus, just you have to get down and do it. You have to know that it's going to be quite an isolating experience. Though some people it depends what sort of writer you are. Like some people love going along to kind of writers' groups and getting lots of feedback from people. And I guess I feel like that's more people who are more of that sort of screenwriter type of mentality, who it's all a bit of a team effort. But I'm more of a sort of loner. So
you're the writer in the attic.
Yeah, the writer in the attic. Yeah, exactly. In terms of advice, so basically there just wasn't any. I just did it literally in a vacuum. All I had was my books and me. That's it. Like, I had nothing else. But now you've got your writers' groups, you've got all sorts of websites about it, you've got the writers' centres, you've got, in a way, it's almost too many things that you can try, and you just don't know what to choose, which way to go. But in the end, it's just you and the screen in front of you. So it's just finding the energy to do it. But also learn to read fast.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Because otherwise you can't edit properly. Like, you have to read things over and over and over and over and over and over again to make sure that they're right. And, if you can read fast, it makes it easier.
Yeah. Now, Catherine, the best place to find you is on your website. Is that correct?
Yeah. I answered questions on that. I unfortunately, this is classic me and my hopeless inability with technology. Okay. So I went and looked to see if I could join Twitter, and somebody had already done it for me, right? Some publisher had done it, and I contacted Twitter and I said, well, this isn't actually me. This was somebody else. And they were going to ask me for a photo ID and I'm like, I'm not going to send them photo ID. Photo ID. Thank God I didn't. Like, Elon Musk, no, thank you very much.
Yes.
So that was that. So I'm not on Twitter because somebody else is pretending to be. Right. That was back years ago,
2016 was the last time. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I just don't. That was not me. I'm sure nobody told me that they'd done that. But it was probably in the early days when it wasn't a big deal, and they sort of probably, it hadn't become the massive worldwide thing. And then with Instagram, I did have this kind of anonymous Instagram account at one point, and then they asked me, and then they put this thing up. Oh, you have to put your age down, and it had one of those whirly. Kind of, you have to sort of, it's like a big drum of numbers, and I was just sort of flicking through, and because I'm just no good, I accidentally clicked on something that said I was 8 years old. and so they wouldn't let me.
Oh, you disqualified yourself
because I'm too young. And if I wanted to get a new Instagram account, I have to get a new friggin' email account, and I don't want to do that.
No.
So that's out.
Yeah. Well, perhaps I'll just suggest to our listeners that they go to catherinejinks.com, Catherine with a C and ERINE, Jinks, JINKS.com, and you'll find all of Catherine's books there. Of course, I think Text Publishing has all your adult books. Certainly, I'm not sure if you.
Well, not all my adult books.
No,
I mean,
the later ones, the thrillers.
The ones that are still around.
Yeah. But children's books, so Mrs. Koala's Beauty Parlour, I think that sounds like a good fun read. Any final words for readers or writers?
I don't know. I love books. I can't get through
Yeah.
it. I have to have a book on the go.
Yes.
Make 2 books.
Oh,
One for before bed, which is peaceful,
yes.
and one a day. And if I have to go, I cannot move without having some kind of book around. That's why Kindles are good.
Yes, and then I have one in case the battery runs out. I always make sure I've got a paperback with me as well.
Yes, exactly. I know, right?
Oh,
So
it's terrible.
If we're as long as you love books, you'll be okay at writing.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely agree with you. Catherine Jinks, author of 52 other books, but certainly we've been talking about Traced, which is a fantastic thriller about Jane being a contact tracer and a whole lot of really tense psychological things happening there. Thank you so much for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
So thank you, Catherine, for such an absolutely brilliant interview. It was lovely to chat to you, and I'm sorry it's taken us so long to get you to the air. But so many things. I love her quote that the publishing industry is in a crisis and has been for the last 400 years.
Yes, that was brilliant. I know many workplaces that seem to be going through that at the moment, but it does feel like everything is changing. Nothing's the same. It changes again, and then changes again, and then who can keep track?
Who can keep track? But and look, I love that she had, email made such a difference. From having to write on TypeScript and post, and imagine the back and forth of that.
Well, when I first started with sending books off, at my point, half of them were email and half of them were still send a hard copy. So I've come on the tail end of that as it shifted fully online. Oh, it's made life so much easier.
Yeah.
And less expensive in Australia.
And less expensive, yes. And, a few less trees that we're cutting down. And I imagine it makes it so much easier for editors to be able to, track changes and to back and forth and
to be able to pop it up on your phone when you're traveling or commuting to work and read through things rather than have to carry around. And as you would know, manuscripts can be quite heavy when you when you print them out to read them. So you don't want to print them if you can get away with it. I imagine a lot of editors and agents and publishers much prefer having everything in front of them.
Yes. Yeah. So what were your thoughts about Catherine's chat?
I absolutely love that she's kept her name through all the different genres.
Yeah.
I'm loving that. I mean, even with our book spotlight that we were talking about before, and I do it myself. I'm multi-genre. I jump around between bits and pieces everywhere. And I think when you have a following and you build that following and they know you as a writer and they read you, yes, you might not release a book that they would particularly be interested in, but it keeps that interest there. And I think as writers, we want to write what entertains us as well and what we enjoy, because we spend, how long do we spend with a book?
Many years. Yeah.
I think if you're not enjoying the 5-year journey of your one book, you could go a little crazy. So being able to bounce around between picture books, I love the idea that these picture books are amazing, and then there's a hardcore thriller around the corner, which is absolutely marvelous. So yeah, I absolutely love that, and I would not be doing the writing that I'm doing if I couldn't do different things.
It's good.
Everyone's journey is different and everyone prefers different things. And if you only write a specific genre, that's awesome too. But it's so cool to actually see those that are branching out. And it's very Neil Gaiman along those lines, where you can write a bit of anything. And it's, I think it's, and the multi-age is really fascinating to me too, because it does take a different mentality, a different voice when you're writing for young adults to writing for adults. And as you would know from your picture books, it's a different kind of style and thinking and
It
So
is.
that was loved
Yeah.
listening to Catherine talking about all of that.
Yeah, she had so much great advice, didn't she? So,
Yes.
learn to read fast,
Mhm.
be pragmatic.
University of Evil. I want to come back to this. This is brilliant. As soon as I heard her say that, I'm like, oh, I need more. I need more of that. That's immediately the brain started creating all sorts of things. It was such a wonderful concept.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's good. It's good. It's good. Yeah, write for yourself. Think for someone else is reading it.
Yep.
Avoid ephemeral slang. Yeah, so many things. So
the screenplay level plotter. Now you would know as a pantser yourself, and I'm very much a pantser. That screenplay level plot, it sounds brilliant and would make life so much easier. I love that idea of being able to plot it out in that really tight. I waffle. I waffle. It just
just
goes.
Yeah, some of it's fluff, and you go, "What was I thinking?" But where was that going? Doesn't add anything. It was a nice description, but
would be so much more efficient to be that tight of a plotter. So that was amazing. I love listening to that. Yeah,
very good. All right, so thank you again, Catherine Jinks.
Thank you.
And Traced is, of course, on the website, and you can chase up all of Catherine's other books as well. So the final little thing I think, Laurie, that we're going to do is have a little quote.
Yes.
So tell me, what is your quote?
Okay, so I have a quote from Ray Bradbury.
Oh, lovely.
So science fiction is any idea that occurs in the head and doesn't exist yet, but soon will, and will change everything for everybody, and nothing will ever be the same again. As soon as you have an idea that changes some small part of the world, you are writing science fiction. It is always the art of the possible, never the impossible.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
I really like that.
I like that. And it very much sums up the experience we're all coming to terms with AI at the moment, with the fact that you couldn't predict where it was going, how quick it hit.
Yes.
Where the creation and the ethics came up in relation to it, which I have issues with. And that I'll get on my rant soapbox another day. But yeah, no, it's that's part of the reason why I love writing science fiction. You can go to places where you don't know where it could get to and what it would mean for people, and like watching The Three Body Problem. So scary,
fascinating.
Not,
scary or not, but I think challenges our boundaries, and that's what I love about sci-fi as well. Is that if you can imagine it, it's possible. And so many of so much of science fiction is predictive, because if we imagine it, well, then let's build it, or let's invent it.
And how much of technology now is come from the concept of writers way back when, and scientists who have dreamt up the crazy, and now it exists and we use it every day.
One of Ray Bradbury's, one of my favorite books of his, is Fahrenheit 451. Which is, of course, the temperature the paper burns at, and the fact that the book police were burning all the books, but people read a whole book and remembered it and then lived that book. They were the library. So I did like that one. All right, I've got you a post from Stephen King, another fabulous writer, and this one popped up on Instagram, and I think it was Ellie Marnie who posted some great stuff there, another one of our fabulous crime writers in Australia. So Stephen King suggests, I'm looking over here, stopping a piece of work just because it's hard, either emotionally or imaginatively, is a bad idea. Sometimes you have to go on when you don't feel like it, and sometimes you're doing good work when it feels like all you're managing to do is shovel shit from a sitting position.
Oh, I totally understand that.
And I think most writers will they'll recognise that point where they're thinking, what the hell am I writing? This is just so much crap and blah, 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 blah. I'm just blah, blah, blah. I need to get out of here.
Well, I think, who is it? I can't remember who is it that said that the first draft is for you and the next drafts are for other people. It's like you really just explode your thoughts onto the page in that first draft, and so much of it'll go. Some you'll keep, but it very much is crap sometimes.
So yes, sorry about that. I'll probably have to put a profane warning on the video, but there you go. But I always say it's not for children, but oh, well, Laurie, thank you. This has been a whole lot of fun chatting with you, and we've got some ideas for writers' rooms where we get some writers together to talk about their process, and that'll help, with tools and how people approach things, because both being science fiction and fantasy and both being pantsers, we need to know there are other things out there, other genres as well, and so we'll get a few bodies there together. Stay tuned, people. There'll be a review at the end as always, and don't forget that if you want to look at any of the books that we've talked about, that we've spotlighted, jump on australianbooklovers.com.
And we have merch. We have merch.
And we have merch. Yes, you can pick all these little mascots.
Even little cups.
We're living the dream. We are living the dream.
Absolutely.
And if you want to get your book up there, it is absolutely free to list. And all it takes is, you putting in your cover, your bio, some blurbs, and the link that you want. And we'll get that on the website for you. Please,
and tell everyone about the podcast. Tell everyone about the website. We love Aussie books.
We absolutely love Aussie books. And if you wanted to support us with a couple of dollars a month, which we have our fabulous subscribers.
Love you all.
Love you all. That really does help us, because it is all volunteer, and we just want to help celebrate Australian books and give people more opportunity to know where Australian books are, which is just, we've got hundreds and hundreds of books of all genres on the website, so please. And keep an eye on there. We're having a bit of a refresh of the website over the next few months, and stay tuned for a review. But what do we have to say, Laurie? We have to remember
to
read more Aussie
books.
Nicely done. I don't think we will have Darren Cassico's fabulous sound. We'll have to see how we go. But thank you so much. And again, thanks to Darren for all that he's done for Australian Book Clubs, and good luck to him.
And thank you for listening, everyone.
Yes, and we will see you another time. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Hi, I'm Naomi Shippen. Stories have always been an important part of my life, but it was not until recent years that I began writing my own. Mystery, suspense, and domestic noir hold a special fascination for me, and my debut novel, Far From Harm, will be coming out in 2023. It's a psychological thriller set in the Victorian high country of Australia, featuring two very different women and one very bad man. You can find out more about my writing on my website, naomishippen.com, and you can follow me on social media, on Twitter at Naomi Shippen, Instagram at naomi.shippen.writes, and Facebook at nshippen. Today I would like to review The Girl She Was Before, the debut novel of Jess Kitching, author of How to Destroy Your Husband. Both stories take place in familiar domestic settings and deal with some challenging themes, but whereas How to Destroy Your Husband examines the aftermath of infidelity, The Girl She Was Before delves into the unsettling world of bullying. Former bullying victim Natalie returns to her hometown in Coral Bay as a successful artist and social media influencer. Married to the local football hero and with a beautiful home and adorable baby daughter, Natalie becomes the toast of the town that used to shun her. But Natalie's blissful and carefully curated life starts to come undone when her arch-nemesis Chrissy Summers returns and tries to usurp Natalie's hard-won status. Chrissy's return coincides with the murder of those in Natalie's inner circle, and Natalie is convinced that Chrissy is to blame. Natalie's desperate attempts to convince police of Chrissy's guilt leave her looking paranoid and unhinged as everyone around her begins to doubt her sanity, even herself. The Girl She Was Before is a spellbinding read that explores the legacy that bullying leaves long after the torment is over. With a whiplash twist that took me completely by surprise, this novel was enthralling from beginning to end. If you enjoy stories featuring mean girls where the past comes back to bite, you're going to love The Girl She Was Before by Jess Kitching.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community and to culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families.
Let's meet again, where magic happens.